Sai Shravanam is a skilled musician, music engineer, producer, and entrepreneur. He has created a benchmark quality in all of his endeavors with a single minded devotion towards music. Uniquely recognized as one of the few classically trained sound designers in the country, Sai Shravanam has developed his talents through years of experience in recording music, bringing musicians the masterful chemistry necessary to produce their best. With his constant thirst for music and technology, he wanted to establish a concrete bridge in Indian classical music between artists and modern technology. He initiated a humble startup in the year 2007, Resound India. He has successfully completed 14 years of professional music production with all the premier artists of our country, international artists, and the most prestigious music labels around the world. He has gained the confidence with artists of great caliber in the field of classical music and classical dance with his innate ability of being a catalyst to amalgamate their ideas with his expertise in technology and creativity without losing the soul or the flow of the classical music in this modern era. Thank you, Sai. Thank you so much for joining us for this podcast today. And we're really glad you were able to spend some time with us.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. In your opinion, what skills and qualities are required to be a good sound engineering technician?
I end up calling myself an artist more than a technician because I realized that sound engineering is not merely science or understanding sound. You need to know music. So we are not dealing with just speech or just making effects of nature and other things on screen for movies. So typically the job that I do and most of the engineers end up doing is they will encounter 70% of their life filled with music, whether it's film, whether it is classical recordings, whether it's any other genre. There is nothing that you see without music in your life.
True.
So to be an excellent sound engineer, the first thing you need to have is to be qualified as a musician yourself. If you're not trained formally in music, at least you must have the ear for music and the love for understanding voices and instruments.
Right.
So that is the fundamental quality that a sound engineer requires. And I always tell people, because we are around with gadgets and speakers and wires and headphones, it's very technical. But the last 18 years that I've been working on sound, I just realized that just being a technician makes no sense, because anybody can learn technology, but to use the technology, you need the ears of an artist.
Beautifully said.
So if you don't have a ear of an artist, no matter you have $1 million equipment or a studio, you may not bring out what is required for the music or for the product.
True. So the essence is lost.
See, nobody bothers whether you know music or you don't know music, but ultimately, the end user, when they listen to the hard work of every music director, producers who come into the studio, and there is so much that goes into them, and they expect something out. And if the sound engineer can either make or break the production
Correct.
or the song, so if he becomes a part of one of the creators, then the end product is very successful. And that is where I have found my success, where I have literally been a musician on the board of being a technologist.
Oh, that's very beautifully shared. And can you share an experience where you applied any new technology or some sort of an information that you gathered recently, and it completely changed or enhanced the music that you were working with?
In terms of there are multiple things that we do. See, one thing is nowadays, because of the lockdown of the entire world, because of this pandemic, we are not able to reach out to musicians. See, there is a lot of music happening in the web, as you know.
Right.
People are at home and artists have become very restless. They want to do something or the other to be present around the society. That is one reason. And the other reason being that art pushes you to keep doing something, and you cannot refrain from, people go mad just sitting at home, especially artists. So they're all very hyperactive on the internet now. So This is a time where we have newer technologies where we record artists across any place, from New York to Chennai, from T Nagar to Adyar, from Singapore. Like we did one of the Singapore's recent productions. None of us met, none of us did anything. And in
Right.
fact, cell phones were used for productions. It's quite revealing.
Wow.
Like phones like iPhone that can record very decent quality sound are used. But I have a disclaimer here. This is only relating to your question, because if there is something new, that is what we have been doing, but it by no means is something that delivers superb quality. It's just a workaround, and it gives a hope that people can still be connected and music can be done across the seas. But it has no relevance to the quality for which I have worked for the last 18 years. Yeah.
Right. No, that completely makes sense. We make do with whatever circumstances are thrust upon us. So that's the way it
Yes.
works. Yeah. And can you elaborate on some of the biggest challenges that you've faced in India, like perhaps on location recording, things like that? Some of the biggest challenges that have sort of, wow, I need to work around this.
The biggest challenge, to be very honest, in India is the fact that the musicians need to be more aware of sound. That's my biggest challenge. India is a country that's culturally exceptionally rich. So I always say India is 20 or more countries in one country, because Kerala is not like Chennai, Chennai is not like Karnataka,
True.
Karnataka is not like Andhra, Andhra is not like Sikkim. So tell me one another country where every 300 kilometers you have a country on its own. It's crazy. And
Correct.
this leads to a lot of diverseness in music. So the sound of folk music in Tamil Nadu has no relevance to the sound in Andhra, to in Karnataka, to Sikkim. So it's, as I said, no, India is so rich. So we are all mentally occupied in creation, in creativity, in going into the art. But there is this one thing that misses around, which has been quite difficult for me to make people understand, is the fact that when technology comes in, it is very important that we need artists to understand perfection in sound, in music, in pitch, in their own sensitivity of understanding who they
Correct.
are,
Correct. Correct.
which is proportionally totally different. It's a paradigm opposite to the status and the class that they have reached because of the repertoire and years of singing and the awards.
Right. Exactly.
So sometimes when artists come into the studio, they are put into like a acid litmus test. It's just a mirror. Studio is just a plain mirror. It just shows you where you are, how your voice is, because there are no audiences. There are nobody to say wow. And this is just one place where you just have to keep doing things until things are right.
Right.
And in India, what happens is there is a bit of a problem that I face, because it's very, very sensitive to express and get the best out of an artist. That is my greatest difficulty. But I think I have been quite successful in man management,
Okay.
trying to keep them comfortable, trying to understand them, get the best out of them. While I really hope and wish that the younger generation can really understand the value of sound, how to produce voice, how to maintain their instruments. This is a
Right.
problem in India. But it should not be spoken as a problem. It is just very cultural.
Huh.
You always, even professionally, we call everybody, annas and akkas, and
True.
the tradition really, you're
It's
always scolded
ingrained. It
of
Yes,
them.
it's ingrained so much.
And there's this huge generation, although my hair is white, I'm pretty young compared to all the senior artists.
Right.
They all love me for the work that I do. I love them because my success is because of them. So I have to find a very, very fine balance in gaining their trust, at the same time trying to ask them what I want, even if it lacks a certain something which they may not be aware of, but I am aware of because I do that every day in my studio.
Correct.
That is the most difficult part for me. Otherwise, India is pleasure.
No, I think everything has their own challenges. And as you rightly said, we are in a very different modality of training or performing. So to bring into a different setting requires a different thought process as well. And
Yes.
everything
And
is wiped out.
it's no fault of theirs. It's just that it's as simple as this. It's like putting a child inside a small room and asking it to behave well. While that could be an ideal situation, but that's not the nature of a child. So for an artist, studio is not the place that they are meant to be in. They are supposed to just be what they are. Nobody wants that perfection. But unfortunately, my job is that, you know, I run a small room, enclosed room for a child. It has to keep quiet. It can't do anything else. So my
Right.
studio, yeah. So that is where a sound engineer also has to understand that we are people who will be putting a blanket on the freedom of an artist. But that covering with a blanket will reveal or bring out much better things from them that people have not heard or have seen. Yeah.
It's
So it's
almost
just
honing it, right? Just you, yourself, nobody else, nothing else, and just honing your art.
yes, but there are fantastic artists. See, most of these top line artists, most of these most successful artists, all the famous names that you all know, are all who have found a balance. It doesn't matter for them whether they are inside the studio or they are in the concert. They are incredible both ways. So that's God's gift.
Right.
And being open to awareness of what you are and how you perform. Yeah.
Oh, that's totally wonderful. Can you sort of, for a lot of youngsters who are also interested, and for a lot of us who are completely novices in this, can you give us a little bit about the tools of the trade and maybe a little bit of advice or, just an explanation, like, say, digital versus analog, computer sound engineering, and then microphones and sound processing?
See, sound engineering should not be a hobby. Sound engineering is something very, very, very serious. And just because you can buy a MacBook Pro and you can buy these small speakers and headphones or a couple of sound cards, because everything is very affordable now, and the world is such a small entity now that you can get anything from anywhere, it cannot make you a sound engineer. It's a
Mm-hmm.
saga. To be a sound engineer is to live and breathe sound. And sound is the fundamental of universal existence. If you can, the reason I'm saying this is everybody says even the universe came out of the sound, you know. That's one thing that has always been prevalent. And this has been told by some of the greatest masters, to rishis, to Einstein, to everyone.
Right.
So there are no two ways to this. So if it is something that serious, you know, it is something that deep, it is something that divine. So, but unfortunately, what has happened is, uh, as I say, I may sound a bit conservative on this. You know, when I see a lot of young people starting to make their own music and recordings and put it on YouTube, it is very nice. It is very good to see people enjoying what they want to do. But unfortunately, we have forgotten that we are all listening to all these programs and podcasts on these small mobile phone speakers that are just, you know, these little tiny 2 millimeter holes that
Yeah.
has no relevance to sound engineering. So it doesn't matter whether it is recorded in a professional studio or Academy Award winning New York studio, or it is done in your bedroom. It's all going to sound the same on these 2 millimeter sound speakers on your mobile phone. So people, all of these, the technology, internet, and social media have kind of opened up avenues that are incredible for artists, but at the same time, they have given a very dark face to understanding the serious potentials of understanding any art form. Like everybody has started to sing on Smule, and sometimes it's horrible.
Yeah.
And some of the horrible stuff have more million views than artists who have learned for 40,
Yes.
50 years. Now,
Yes.
I have thought to myself, am I wrong or are the other people wrong? And when actually there are about a million of them enjoying something, then the problem should be me, right? You understand?
Yeah.
So it is a bit philosophical, but that's the truth. So who are we to judge has come, you know? If somebody is actually famous by doing something and it works and they are an artist and the world regards them as an artist on social media, I mean, I should keep quiet, to be very honest. But your question is, what should I tell the youngsters? I'm just saying, be aware of this. Be aware of the fact that whatever you're trying to do is something very serious. And sound engineering is learning every day. 18 years and I'm still learning. Every production I'm still mixing. Yesterday I had mixed one song for Srimati Sudha Raghunathan, and everything sounded great. The feedback was great. And all over again in the morning, I'm back in the studio before this interview, trying to tweak those little few things to make it even better and better, and write to the videographer saying, I'm sending one more file, just wait. Not that the previous file was bad, but something, there is this itch for excellence. Yeah, so you must have that itch for excellence. You must have that craving to do what you want to do in your life. And sound engineering is as serious as operating a patient, although that's to do with life and this is to do with music and art. The seriousness of it, it deserves all the seriousness. Yeah. So the youngsters can take this up if and only they want to respect this and it's not a hobby.
No, that's itch for excellence was a beautiful takeaway. And I think a lot of people also have to understand there's just so much of learning. Then learning never stops. It's not just how do I use this equipment, but it's a lot more. But I do want to, sort of ask you, perhaps as a complete novice, on what is the latest that has come in that you've incorporated, just a few that you think are really making a difference in either the quality of sound or the ease of editing.
To be very honest, I'm very less dependent on digital stuff like plugins and other things. I am a hardware person. My studio is full of hardware things. Like you can see, it's all full of gears and
yes.
So what happens is I keep searching and I keep seeing which equipment can actually bring in fantastic sound. So now I've realized lately in my life, after burning my pockets, spending a lot of money on technology, all these top companies are very expensive. Microphones are expensive, preamplifiers are expensive, my speakers are expensive. And I had to go through it to come out of it, to be very honest. I had to spend so much to see what was all this. Now I've realized that there are fantastic people who are sitting in remote places across the world making some of the world's most boutique microphones, who specifically design microphones for you. I have started to plunge into that world of just buying the right things that I need and not go by the name or the company from Germany or if it's from Finland. So I'm very lucky to say that I have a network of people who are exceptional in the same field. So they love me, I love them, we share a lot of things. And now I'm into buying microphones that have no name or labels, but can make a singer's amazing sound, make them absolutely amazing sounding. So I've started to slowly flow into those and give up on my attachment to these famous brands and names.
Yeah.
And more towards getting the right sound out of the product that I'm going to deliver. Apart from this, yes, computer and softwares and all of these things it's become a bit too much now. Every month they are giving an update.
Right.
And to me, I have also realized one thing is, more than jumping at all, that I am absolutely useless if I don't have a great music or an artist performing in my studio. Sai Shravanam is absolutely meaningless, and none of these equipments and none of the things that I do in my life have any relevance to success if I don't have great artists, if I don't have great performances, and if I don't have a great music director and a producer who will give me a product for which whatever I do does justice. So it's just a shake hand thing, I can't do magic from nothingness. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for spending time with us. I'm sure there are so much more we can ask, but I know you're busy. But thank you so much for taking this time off. And, even if it's in between assignments, you just took the plunge, and I'm sure a lot of us will benefit. At least a growing knowledge of what this is And what more is required, it's not just the equipment, but just the fact that you really need to learn and
Yes.
it yourself. And I think that's very important, because a lot of people substitute technology for talent. And I think we need to take a step back and take a breather on that. So
Yes.
thanks so much for spending this time with us, Sai.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you.
Thank you.